Hi and welcome to this week's Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons teaching. It's great to be back with you all. This week we are talking all about trust, and this teaching is going to be for you if you struggle with trusting yourself, other people, or life in general. Okay, David, so how common are trust issues with the clients that you work with?
It's really common, Alex, and it's very important, even if you may not be using the word trust. But this idea of trusting yourself, for instance, it seems a little bit strange to say, but trusting yourself that you're going to be able to cope, for instance, is very important. Trusting yourself that the idea that you're not good enough is a nonsense is very important. Trusting other people and knowing that even though they may in their best intention offer you something or promise you something, it may not happen the way that they promise you, and being able to flow with that. So this is a big subject, and I want to go into this with a lot of detail.
And I can see how a lack of trust or self-doubt or doubt for other people or doubt about how life works out for us can be, if we haven't got this concept in balance, it can be very debilitating in all aspects of our life.
We have these three foundations in our model, the Wu Wei Wisdom model, which is based on Taoism. The first one is you are the creator of your emotions, not the victim. That's extremely important. All these three are extremely important. You have innate worth and value that I like to label Shen. And number three, you are accountable. And that accountability is reinforced through truth, honesty, and integrity. So it's the truth, honesty, integrity that we're going to be focusing on this trust issue. Are you true to yourself? When you say things, is it the truth? And I will say, a lot of my clients, they're not telling the truth. When they say things like, I'm not good enough, that's not the truth. That can't be the truth. That doesn't even make sense to me. When they say, I can't cope, or I'm unlovable. And in that instance of saying those words, you're breaking the trust.
But David, I would think that a lot of people don't actually say those words out loud. But what you're saying is, thinking, if you have those concepts in your self-talk or a variation of those concepts, essentially the self-doubting self-talk, that's a lack of trust in you, which, are you saying that's then the foundation? And if you don't trust yourself, or if you're not truthful about yourself and your own qualities, then does that have like a knock-on effect in your ability to trust other people or trust life in general? Are they all interlinked somehow?
I would go even one step further. I would say if you don't trust yourself, you cannot trust other people in life. Because if you haven't got that foundation, we have a little saying that be mindful of your self-talk. It's a conversation with the universe. This is very important. So as you've just pointed out, you may not verbalize that, although, to be honest, some of my clients, nearly all my clients, will verbalize that. But even if you think that, you are breaking an inner trust with yourself. I translate this from the Taoist teaching is as though we have a spiritual contract. We have a contract with the universe. The universe or the Tao is upholding their end of the contract. We're the one that's reneging on our end of the contract when we get sidetracked with these words that I don't trust myself, or I don't value myself, or I don't think I'm good enough. We're breaking the contract, and we're then lacking trust in ourselves. And this is why it's so vital.
And I guess, David, this is you make the point that the universe, the cosmos, I guess you would say, is a place of abundance, is a place of adaptation, transformation. There's always change and transformation, but then the universe self-corrects. The universe never doubts itself, I guess. And we doubt ourselves, and we break that contract because I guess we're never taught the spiritual teaching that we are an intrinsic part of the universe. We are one of the same thing. But we perceive ourselves as individuals as lesser than, as flawed, as scarred in some way, as, born with original sin, of some sort of self-corruption that we believe exists within us that diminishes us.
It's really important that you pointed that out, Alex, because so many of us say those things without realizing the significance of what we're doing. Because you've just talked about one side of the pendulum, that self-talk, that negative, but we also do the other side, control. We think we know better. We think we're superior. We think things should be the way that we want them to be, when we want them to be. And both of those are two ends of the same pendulum, but both of those are breaking our connection, our alignment, I would say the contract with the universe, with the Tao. We are not aligning with the way of nature. When I was in the Wudong Mountains and I was having a kind of a one-to-one with a monk there, he said something really profound to me. He used to call me David Lee, there is no mysteries in the universe. Just look out the window and see how nature acts. See how nature moves through seasons, how it releases, how it lets go, how it grows, how it reaches fulfillment. Watch the cycles. And this is what we have to align ourselves with. And when we doubt ourselves or lose trust in ourselves, and therefore we have to lose trust in other people, because if we don't trust us, how can we trust them? Because we understand that they're doing the same as us, we then break that contract.
So do we have to go back to the first time we lost trust in ourselves? Do we, in order to undo this, to rebuild trust in ourselves, is it like, this involve inner child work, looking back at our childhood influences, that sort of work?
Yes, that can be a very important way. We can do the golden thread process. And if you're new to the channel, if you look at other videos, you will see we do that self-inquiry, asking why. Why is it you're finding it difficult to be truthful, to be honest, to have integrity? Why is that so difficult for you? And you will sometimes find the seed of that lies in your childhood. And that period between 6 and 9, as I always say, is vital for me, because then you say the vow. The vow is when you say to yourself, there's something wrong with me. There's something missing in me. Whatever the word you use, but it's doubting yourself. So something happens to you that could be completely dysfunctional and shouldn't happen. But instead of placing the realization of where the fault lies, we turn and blame ourselves. We said, well, my parents, for instance, my parents don't love me or find it difficult to show their love for me. That must mean there's something wrong with me. And in that moment, you've just created a lie. And you've created a separation because you put doubt in your own mind that you are not divine, that you are not awesome, that you are not part of the universe. You are not part of nature. And someone commented the other week about, I use the word awesome and I'm overstating the case. I completely disagree with you. We are awesome. And anyone that's come through a dysfunctional childhood, to me, is victorious. I'm sorry. You are awesome. And you should never doubt yourself or undersell yourself. And the way you build that trust in yourself is to stop this dishonesty about yourself and to live to your true potential. This is why this teaching is so vital for you.
And David, I can also see, so you've described the origin of the vow, the self-doubt, the self-blame, the lack of self-trust in childhood it could be through a whole host of childhood experiences, traumas, abuse, bullying, or just general day-to-day childhood stuff where things are not appropriately explained to you in terms of what's happening. But I can also see, in parallel to that, the relationship with our parents, say, if a parent leaves the family home without kind of a good understanding and explanation to us as the child, or, all sorts of relational dynamics in childhood will also impact our ability to trust our loved ones as adults when we get into adulthood. So whether that's our partners, other family members, other important friends, if we have a rocky, turbulent, upsetting relationship with parents and not understanding whether they're with us or not with us, or whether they love us or don't love us, that can also confuse us on the issue of trust and other people.
You're absolutely right, Alex, and it was very well explained. But I would still go, you've got to build that foundation of trust on solid rock foundations about trusting yourself. And when you get that trust as in yourself, you begin to understand about nature and about the way of the universe and about change and about transformation. So when people do enter and leave your life, which they will, this is the way of the universe. People will come into your life and lead your life. But you know the one person that will never leave you? The one person that is there with you when you were born until you die is you. And so for me, the Taoist teaching is that rock foundation of trust has got to be with yourself in the first place. Because if it's not, this is what happens. That part of your mind that I call the inner child is constantly looking externally for others to give them what they believe they need, this stability, this lifelong commitment, this certainty, this control. And they'll always be let down. And so it's almost like you're in a vortex or quicksand. You get more and more disappointed. And then some of my clients will utter the phrase, I don't even trust the universe. I don't even understand that saying. The universe is such a wonderful place. The Tao, the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, life, reality. We are so blessed to live in this place. How could you not trust it? And if you trace that back, like I do with my clients, it will always come back to the lack of trust in themselves. And that's where you have to build from that solid foundation.
So, David, I know people will be listening to this and saying, okay, I understand, I get it. I need to trust myself first. I also can, if I think about it, I can see where a lack of trust in myself may have come from my childhood experiences. And I can see also how it's affecting my life now, my adult life, my career, my relationships, my friendships, my life choices now as an adult. But I can't just all of a sudden start trusting myself, like switching on a light switch, because to be honest, David, if something bad happens, I don't trust myself. I know I'll crumble. I know I'll fail. It's happened before. I'm a weak person, or I can't hold it together, or I just, history has told me things will go wrong, and I'm just not able to cope, or I'm just not good enough to cope.
That's very well said, Alex, because I could say I probably hear that from the majority of my clients, this idea of the switch. Well, I can't just switch, can I, David? I've had this belief for so long. I can't just change the belief. But you switch the belief to have the belief. You're choosing to have the belief. Remember the third of the three foundations, accountability. You see, you do control your thinking and your beliefs. And those beliefs should be based on truth. And it's how much you value that connection to your truth. Now, you're switching the switch and choosing to lie. As you say, well, I've always failed. The reason why you've always failed is because you've got this wrong belief. Failing and not being successful, and I forget what you said, crumbling or whatever word, is the result, the consequence of having a wrong belief. That's not proof that you can't cope. That's the consequences of believing you can't cope. This is where I would say it's so important for you to think about that.
Okay, David, so what you're saying is so in childhood, I created the vow that I'm not good enough, I can't cope, I'm unlovable. That vow of self-doubt, that flicked the switch, as we're describing it. from that point onwards, it's almost like we're handicapped in terms of how we go about our day-to-day life, the choices we make, our actions. We play small, we're nervous about things, we don't do things to the best of our ability because everything is driven through the filter of self-doubt. And therefore, what you're saying is we then have more failures or more things don't go the way we would like them to go. Or there's just more, I guess, a gathering or a creation of more evidence to prove the vow, the self-doubt. And is what you're saying then that if we didn't have that vow, we wouldn't be in such a kind of debilitated position? So things may not have always gone right for us. Some people may have done things that we didn't want them to do, but that the percentage of things not working out, would it be actually reduced?
I think I'm saying something is even more profound than that, Alex, you see, because here's what I'm saying. If you have the vow, there's something wrong with me, I'm not good enough, I can't cope, I'm unlovable, the outcome has to follow that. You are creating, it's the law of attraction. You don't think you're not good enough. What the universe will sit down and say, well, I'm going to prove to you you are good enough. You will just get what you ask for. Go back to your switching the switch. You are already awesome. You already have a beautiful white golden light. You're switching the switch to have a red light. Now you're saying, look, when I look at the world through that red light, everything's red. Well, of course it is, because that's what you're saying. You are creating those outcomes. So as you quite rightly said, then when the outcomes happen, you have a bad time, a bad run, a partner leaves you, you get made redundant, you go, there you are, look, there's the evidence. It's not evidence, it's the outcome, it's the result, it's the consequence. And so if you were looking at that situation through a white lens, as I've done with many, many clients, I use redundancy, you go, wow, this is a great opportunity now for me to move careers, to start a new career, to go back to study, to do something new. You look at it, you view it through a different light. And this comes back to trust. If you do not trust yourself, and this is what Alex says, well, David, I can't just switch a switch. Of course you can. It's your switch. Nobody else has got the switch. Somebody else, your parents, haven't switched the switch. You switch the switch. Nobody can put their hand inside your head and switch the switch. Be accountable. I don't expect you to get it right, but I do expect you to switch the switch and then spend the next few weeks or months correcting, coming back to the correct, truthful way, being accountable. And then that builds your trust in yourself. And now you'll see the positive law of attraction. You will now start to notice what I call, being a Taoist, the cosmic helpers, the coincidences, the good things starting to happen. They were happening before, but you didn't want to notice them. Now, when you switch the switch, you'll now start to turn the vortex into a positive. And now you start to build up your trust in yourself. You start to build up your trust in your relationships, your career, your life. And now this is a momentum that's growing and growing, like a snowball coming down a mountain, growing up and getting more and more powerful.
And I guess, David, the reason why we don't notice or the abundance, the cosmic helpers, the opportunities that are always out there all of the time is because we're so focused on not trusting, on gathering evidence of all the reasons that things aren't going to work out for us, with other people, with us, with life. And that's where we place our energy, intention and attention, rather than being open and eyes wide open, looking through that white lens and seizing all the opportunities that arise from challenging, unexpected, often unwanted situations.
But it's even more contradictory than that, Alex, because when you're looking through that red lens and opportunity comes knocking at the door, You're going to go, well, I don't trust that. That's going to let me down. Let's go down the old way where I know I'm going to be let down. When I can do the poor me. Look what happens. It never works out for me. How many times have you been in a position and you've said to yourself, I knew that was wrong. I knew that was wrong. But I still did it. And that's what I'm talking about. That's trusting yourself. And when you start to trust yourself, here's a life lesson, as Alex started off at the start. When you trust yourself, then you start to build up the trust in other people. Because if they do let you down, it's more like a shrug of the shoulders because you're following your course. This is your life. You are accountable. This is the third of the three foundations. You are accountable through truth, honesty, and integrity. And many of my clients say, could you describe integrity? I'm going to describe it for you. Look at the opposite. Hypocrisy. And when you're looking at the bad things and expecting good things to happen, that's being hypocritical. If you're focusing on the negative, if you're saying, I'm not good enough, how do you think, what's going to happen? Do you think the universe has to get down on their knees and pray and say, yes, you are good enough, please believe me? And then you wouldn't believe them. You say, well, they're up to something. I can't cope. My goodness, look at your life. You are a coping machine. You've always coped. The idea that you can't cope is frankly ridiculous. You cope every minute of every day. And when you turn the switch and look at it through a white lens, then guess you'll cope with ease, with flow. And I'm unlovable. I don't deserve it. I'm not worthy. Well, how can that be true? How can you be less worthy than someone else? Who sets up this hierarchical system where you're above them or they're hierarchically above you? These are all built on integrity. What do you believe? Why do you believe it? Is it the truth? Would you pass the Shen test? Would you teach that to your child? See, these are all simple tests. Don't get it confused. And if you're getting confused, I can tell you the inner child is involved because it loves confusion.
Well, I want to clear up a little bit of confusion here just to make sure I've understood and our listeners have understood. So you've said we need to flick this switch back from self-doubt to self-understanding, self-valuing, knowing we can cope, knowing that we're worthy, knowing that we're lovable, knowing that we'll manage, trusting. And what flicks the switch is accountability. So just to be clear, what in practical terms does that mean? I know you've just talked about integrity, speaking your truth, but what in a day-to-day context, what does accountability mean?
Okay, I'll simplify it. Stop lying. Is that simple enough for you? And I know a lot of people watching this don't like it when I say this word. Stop it. And stop it now. You've always known it's a lie. When you hear that inner chitter chatter, I'm not good enough, I can't cope, it's all against me, nobody loves me, it's a lie. And you know it's a lie. I know that because you are a spiritual being. And down deep inside of you that we're trying to reach, that inner knowing, that inner sense, that truth, that honesty, that integrity, when you live your life by those rules and refuse to lie in your self-talk, first of all, that's where it starts, and nobody else need know that you're doing it. But notice how many times a day, just do this test. Do you CCJ? Compare, criticize, be judgmental about yourself and others. That's not truthful. What are you wasting your time doing that for? Why don't you focus on keeping that switch pressed down until it presses down on its own account? And you live your life in flow. You live your life truthfully. You live your life connected to Shen, to your spirit. You are divine. You are awesome. I believe in you. Now it's your turn to believe in yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. And this idea of accountability through not lying to ourselves, once we are truthful to ourselves in this way, then I guess looping back to where we started from, this then allows us to be more trusting in our relationships, in our friendships, in our work, in all aspects of our life. And in the universe in general, it has that kind of ripple effect in terms of the shift of our energy.
Well, yes, because then you believe that nothing ever ends. You believe that anything that comes your way is just a rock in your stream, and you easily get round it. So nothing stops you, because if your trusting is in yourself and your ability, you know that you can keep in your flow whatever it is, whatever comes your way. And that goes back to trusting yourself. And then the idea of trusting the universe, where you don't need anything from the universe. The universe already gives us everything. We're so blessed to live in this universe, to live with the Tao, to live with other people. And other people can only do what they can do. And we should not be dependent on them. We should be dependent on ourselves, on our spirituality, on our Shen. You are awesome. I don't doubt yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. And if you're interested in this topic, I will put a link in the show notes to more teachings that we have on the subject of trust, and also to our love and relationships playlist, which touches often on the topic of self-love and the dynamics of different sorts of relationships. I really hope you have enjoyed this teaching. Please do let us know, and perhaps share it with someone else who you think may also benefit. David works one-to-one every week with clients all over the world via Zoom video call. If you'd like to learn more about David's one-to-one consultations, please also check out the show notes, and I'll put a link to more information on those as well. And finally, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We produce new teachings every week, and we would love to share your journey with you. Bye-bye.